and welcome to our Q&A session. Our guest today is Kacper Waclawski. Kacper is a talented musician. He works as a musical director in the church. He is the owner of a musical school, farm, vegetarian restaurant, private Montessori school, and also he is leading one of the spiritual centers in Canada. So you have a lot of experience in different spheres of life, including spiritual. Therefore, you are here. I would like to ask you today's question: how to deal with hardships?
How to deal with hardships. Okay, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having me as a candidate for the interview for your YouTube channel that we're running here. It seems very nice. So question, how to deal with hardships. So hardships, this is something that I think is it's part of the design of the world, right? Difficulties are always there, at every turn, wherever you go. There may be some good, but with the good, there's always some negative that's there too. And it's just, whatever you do, let's have some examples of hardships. Weather, for instance. There's lots of hardships that are caused because of weather. Right now we're dealing with climate change, for instance. And we can see, just recently in Ottawa, a few months ago, we had this weather event that came and it knocked down all the trees and created lots of hardships. And people were without power for a long time. It was difficult to be able to commute, to go to work, for telecommunications. There was, emergency vehicles that couldn't get to places wherever they needed to get. So that's an example, a pretty broad example of some hardships that this was causing. Now there's all kinds of hardships. There could be, there's mental hardships also that are there. This is something that we've observed a lot due to COVID, COVID-19. I've spoken to one social worker who was telling me that she's been in touch with different families throughout the pandemic, with children, and she was saying that, because of the isolation and the change in circumstances, there's been such a rise in mental anxiety that's there. Difficulties, domestic abuse, violence. So, those hardships are there. Now, with respect to Vedic culture, right, our philosophy, that's what it revolves around. Essentially, it revolves around trying to teach us or give us some practical solutions, how to tolerate, some of these hardships, and better yet, how to embrace them. One of our icons is Mother Kunti, who is the mother of the Pandavas. This is this epic Bhagavad Gita, which is a discussion between Krishna and Arjuna. And, her prayer was, "Oh Lord, please make all of these calamities fall upon me. Please make these hardships, come so that I can somehow remember you, so I can cultivate a relationship, and grow closer to have a relationship with the Lord." And you mentioned that one of my jobs that I do is I work at the church. I was just actually having a conversation with my boss, the priest at the church, and we were talking a little bit about spiritual culture, and he was saying that one of his mentors told him actually that there's no such thing as worship without sacrifice. That sacrifice has to be there. If you want to have, some kind of satisfaction, right, with worship, right, in a religious community, then that element of sacrifice, or a little bit of discomfort, or some hardship is almost necessary. And so similarly, there's a few English sayings. One of them is, "No pain, no gain," right? So if you want to gain something, there has to be a little bit of pain that's there. Those are some examples that are there in our mundane, world. But, Yeah, there's another verse actually in the Bhagavad Gita which actually says matras parshas konteya, which kind of gives an analogy. It shows that the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress is like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer seasons. So one must learn to tolerate it without becoming disturbed. And it also says that it actually just arises from sense perception. So some of these remedies are kind of given, and it's about consciousness, essentially. The Bhagavad Gita is telling us that we don't actually have to change anything that we do in our life. All we have to do is try to maybe change our consciousness, right? So how we embrace these challenges that come, ahead of us. We can look and see that, it's a difficult time right now. Maybe we don't have the perfect ingredients, or we don't have the perfect facilities to accomplish what we want to accomplish. So we can look at it as being like the cup is, half empty, right? Or we can look at it as being like, wow, at least we have this and that. So cup being, half full, right? It's another perspective, and look at it as an opportunity. This is a way for us we've had some challenge, we've had some setbacks. This is where we can grow, right? Go from the bottom, right? And this is also something that's very prevalent in our Vaishnava culture, Vedic culture, is that, it takes a certain approach to be able to grow, right? To be able to make some kind of advancement, spiritual advancement. And some qualities, are very necessary for this, to be able to create such an environment for this. And those are such as humility, right? There's a verse that Lord Chaitanya left us. And it was the third verse of Shikshastakam, which is saying, Trinada pisu nichana, right? It says that one should be, more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. And in such a state of mind, one can, and offer all respects to others, one can, constantly be practicing and be happy, essentially be satisfied. And so these hardships help us, bring us to that point, actually. They show us that, we're not perfect, we have difficulties, and great, right? Because it gives us a great starting point. We can start from the bottom and continue to build. So those were some thoughts on that question. I don't know, what do you think?
It's easier to say that how to be that we should be tolerant.
Okay.
But actually how we can act intolerant.
Very good question, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's easy to say, hey, don't let this bother you, right?
Yes,
it's just gonna pass, it's okay.
Yes.
But on the other hand, it's like, it's so real. You get into it, we're talking about this grand philosophy, but when it comes to, push comes to shove, you put in that circumstance and you start to get stressed and you come into anxiety. So how to do it? You just practice. You just, through reading, if you read about it a little bit, if you keep good company of those who are also trying to tolerate, are on that path too, to trying to change themselves. That's essentially, that's the recipe. You try to kind of surround yourself with those kind of persons, right, who have a similar, outlook, and then it starts to rub off, a little bit. It may take some time, but it rubs off. And it's also, again, when you try to cultivate, this kind of a spirit of humility a little bit, it's also somewhat synonymous with keeping expectations, low, right? Because sometimes we have expectations ourselves of like, our life is going to be perfect. We're just going to lay our life in such a way that we don't have to suffer at all. And you kind of start to plan for enjoyment a little bit. And then when that gets quashed, when you get hit with a hardship that comes out of nowhere, it's like, oh no, But when you kind of see it coming, and somewhat you expect that, hardships are going to come, and you don't really plan on, necessarily enjoying it, then when it comes, you just deal with it. You're somewhat equipoised. You're okay. You're not complete. Your life isn't crushed, and you're happy. You're satisfied with. You understand that it's coming. You understand that it's going, and I have to do what I'm doing. I'm on my journey, right, path. Whether my journey is servitorship, right, trying to work with others, right, trying to, live a spiritual life, or whatever we do. I think it's a practical tip is, again, to try to manage those expectations. manage expectations of others, but also your own expectations.
Someone has more than you. Someone has a better job. Someone has better
You
piece
feel
of
jealous
cake.
a little bit, yeah.
Yes, it's not like jealous, like
Keeping up with the Joneses, that's the term, right? You see other persons have it, then you feel like you need to have it also, yeah?
yes, how to deal with this?
Yeah, with that urge, right?
Yes, yes.
To do that. Yeah, it's a very good question. Again, I would put it to again, association. So association means the company you keep. If you're spending a lot of time, you know, with people who, you know, are looking to, you know, better their material comforts, right? Then obviously you will have that urge that you want to do that because you see it. You know, your senses are engaged, and naturally we're all sentient beings, right? So it starts to agitate those senses, right? You start to contemplate, right? And, you know, again, a verse in the Gita says that, you know, from this contemplation, you know, you start to get a little bit of lust, right? Then you're like, I need it, right? And you start to really meditate on it. And then you get angry and you get frustrated when it doesn't come, right? When you face some hardships. So, you know, again, if you can surround yourself with those persons who, you know, don't necessarily have that, or keep a balance. Let's just say keep a balance, because you can't always, you know, predict, you know, what environment you're going to be in. You have some control, right? But it's somewhat limited. But try to really seek that balance. You know what's good for you. You know what's medicine is good for you to be able to take. So, you know, if you do that, essentially that will be helpful. At least that's my understanding. Another saying that I really like also is, you know, when life gives you lemons, you know, you can make lemonade, you know. So you think about when you hear about lemons, it's like, you know, you got a lemon, right? So you thought it was going to be a good car, but it turns out to just give you trouble. It's not working. It's a lemon, right? So it's a hardship. So again, you turn it around. When it gives you lemons, you can make a lemonade, right? With that respect. So again, always having a positive outlook. You know, things could always be worse. And one of my mentors, he also said, in terms of attitude, he was saying that, you know, when something bad happens to him, he said that, you know, he was just walking in the temple and he ended up stubbing his toe. So he hurt his toe. And he was thinking, oh, this is so painful. But he says, but I deserve to have my head cut off, right? So this is really good, right? This was great, you know. It's minimized, experienced.